Welcome back to Up to Speed, StarCraft, the story so far, Heart of the Swarm Special Edition. I'm your host, Clutch. Joining me on the set's the very lovely Lauren Elise, who's been our chat moderator and taking a lot of great questions. A lot of people are saying, whoa, to Arcturus Manx and Mr. James Harper. Yeah, it was such a blast.
A lot of that going on.
Such a blast to hang out with them at the HOTS launch event and for them to be so candid, and they do great interviews. I mean, they're actors. They know how to be interviewed.
And a lot of people think that he looks the most like his character.
Oh, it's true. It's true. He was intimidating.
Yeah? Did he scare you a little bit?
No, because I'm a little bit taller than him. Maybe a little bit more
overpowered him?
Younger, yeah. But
I mean, his attitude is pretty spot on.
He controls the camera.
Yeah.
And you saw that when he was talking to Day 9 during the launch event. He's like, I am in control, not Sean. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
I was going to mention the same exact thing, Josh. Like that was number one. The two of them together, it was really cool because it seems like they have the same personality. So like you said, they're both trying to control the flow of the conversation, even because that's what it was. It was him interviewing. It was Sean interviewing James, and it was definitely fun to watch, especially live. Just seeing the two of them go together, it worked out really well.
Yeah, well, joining us from the beautiful state of Arizona is the man who played Shane from Walking Dead, Kevin Six and Carlino. Had to throw it in there.
You look just like him, and everybody in chat is saying that.
I've actually heard that before. My girlfriend's parents told me the same thing. I'm like, really? I guess so.
Take it as a compliment, my friend. I've had a couple people say I look like Tom Welling from Smallville. And I don't know if that's exactly true.
Actually, yeah, I can see that.
I will take that.
Yeah.
That is one of the greatest compliments you could ever tell Clutch, for sure.
Aww.
And I talk to myself in third person. That's not normal. All right, let's move on here because we have a little bit more to cover before we say our goodbyes to Heart of the Swarm. And that is, first off, the questions answered in Heart of the Swarm that we brought up in our previous episode of the Heart of the Swarm lore special. First off, man, the Dark Voice is revealed. His name is Amon. He is a Xel'Naga. He did go rogue. Stukov is still alive, and he is fulfilling such a phenomenal role in the Swarm right now, being an ally for Kerrigan. How Amon corrupted the Zerg is revealed, with Zervan saying that he incorporated the hive mind with the overmind to control them, and that Narud was Duran, backwards name, hiding in plain sight, if you will.
Yeah.
On my end, Six, and that's what was answered for me. Anything for you, or anything we need to go more in depth of what was answered?
I was just glad that we got to hear some of the backstory of the Zerg. Again, we got to play through all the primal Zerg, and we got to stand in the original spawning pool. This was all really cool stuff for me. Being lore geeks, I guess you could say. This was actually really awesome. Like I said before, Heart of the Swarm is exactly what it needed to be.
And it's the type of story, being this installment, almost the Empire Strikes Back kind of installment, is you want to answer some questions, especially if we've been having these questions for 15 years. We have it for a long time. Wings of Liberty answered a couple, but they seem to ask more. And now with the narrative of Heart of the Swarm, it was very, very fulfilling for a lot of people that have invested so much in the lore and so much into the books. But there are a couple things that we really wanted to see but did not see, and there are a lot of questions that have been asked. And one of those first questions has to deal with what happens next. Of course, you want to know in the second installment of a 3-part series or a trilogy, what happens next. And the first thing that we really have to address is the Terran Dominion leadership. Now, we did have somebody submit their own take and kind of theories of what could happen, and those are the gentlemen over at A Move TV. Let's go ahead and see what they had to say.
Hey, Clutch and NASL crew. Garrett here from the Campaign Roundtable podcast, and I've got a question for you since you guys are doing a lore show on Heart of the Swarm. So, Korhal is in ruins, and many of the essential manufacturing worlds of the Dominion war machine have been infested by the Zerg. Prince Valerian will most likely have to be placed on the throne by his allies, Rainer's Raiders, who have in turn allied themselves heavily with Kerrigan. Kerrigan, in addition to all her past war crimes and the massacre on Kaldir, now has a transport ship full of battle-hungry Zerg speeding towards the Protoss homeworld. With all of this in mind, what do you see the Terran forces, or what role do you see the Terran forces playing in Legacy of the Void? Will they be in any state to help? Will the Protoss even want their help? I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say on the subject. And, of course, if your listeners and viewers would like to hear more on the subject of Heart of the Swarm lore, they can check out our show, the Campaign Roundtable, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. over at amove.tv. Hope to see some of you guys over there, and keep up the good work. Hey.
Thank you, Garrett, over there at amove.tv. Make sure to check them out. They have some good shows over there. They also do StarCast, which is over 100 episodes for their podcast. I've been a guest on there one time before. They are awesome. And moving into his question, though, the Terran Dominion leadership, Kevin, this is a time that Valerian has to step up. I feel he has proven himself time and time again in the novel of Flashpoint and standing up to Kerrigan, trying to protect his people, doing what is best for his people, and having the maturity and sense of staying out of Kerrigan's way that I feel he'll be a very viable leader and better than his father. Your thoughts on Valerian taking that mantle?
I completely agree with that. And not only do I feel like he knows Kerrigan, but Kerrigan respects him as a leader. If we go back to just that final mission where she kind of stops and, like I said, they locked eyes and she took a moment and she said, "All right, I'll do what I can to minimize casualties." That was good. This is something we need, something that hasn't been seen before. The leader of the Swarm and the leader of the Terran being, respecting each other. I suppose one could argue Arcturus Manx respected Kerrigan, but at the same time, he felt like he did everything. He was the cause of everything. Now we have a little bit of a change of pace with Valerian taking over, hopefully. I'm curious. I mean, Core Hall is in ruins. Maybe he doesn't take Core Hall as the capital of the new Terran government. Maybe it's not even the Dominion anymore. I mean, it went from the Confederacy prior to Mengsk, and then Arcturus took over, and now it's just this new. It's the rebirth of like a reborn Terran. And I feel like this was a great question leading us into Legacy of the Void. I know we're gonna answer some more questions, but I wanted to touch on this very briefly. It feels like Legacy of the Void is simply going to be the rebirth of everybody. We now have this reborn Swarm. We have Kerrigan and Stukov and Dahaka with the different parts or factions of the Swarm all coming together. We now have the Terran, who have a completely new government. And again, we don't know how far off Legacy of the Void will be. It could be 4 years. It could be 4 weeks. We now have the reborn Terran and the Protoss in the meantime, depending on how much time is in between and what happens in Legacy of the Void. You and I spoke about this. I feel like it's going to be the Protoss reuniting as well. Previously, we've had tribal issues, just infighting amongst the Protoss tribes. Aside from that, we also have this conflict between the Kala and the Void. All of these, I feel like, will be resolved or will have been resolved in the interim to Legacy of the Void. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the rebirth of the Terran, the rebirth of the Protoss, and the rebirth of the Zerg, all coming together and fighting this Aemon or Xel'Naga, Rogue Xel'Naga, whatever he's going to be at the time. That is what I feel Legacy of the Void is going to be all about.
It's an us versus them scenario. This is how Arcturus Manx gained his power. It's us as a Terran Dominion against the Protoss and the Zerg. We have to unite. And from that throne, I shall watch over you. That's how he's able to gain power and use the Zerg as weapons to be able to accomplish it. Valerian wants to use compassion. And this is a man that has been trying to escape assassins and training himself to be his father's successor. If there's arguments from the geopolitical strife that has happened because of the Swarm invading Core Hall, it might be there, like, well, if Arcturus Manx couldn't defend us, then his son can't. But overall, I think it won't turn into this huge battle for the throne. Everybody will acknowledge Valerian is the one that needs to take it. I wonder what he'll do with Jim, if he'll actually honor Jim as a hero, and if people will actually listen to that, or if he won't address that at all, because Jim
Kerrigan as well.
Exactly. If Kerrigan comes out and says the reason why I spared so many of you is because Arcturus Manx was evil and needed to be taken down, however I support his son. If that was in a newsfeed, people are like, the Queen of Blades supports Valerian? No way we can have him in the throne. They could totally twist that around. I really wonder where they're going to go with it. However, I don't think it's going to be focused on heavily, at least in the game, because Heart of the Swarm wrapped up a lot of what happened in Wings of Liberty. I mean, it still was kind of a Terran campaign because you had a lot of Terran elements and characters involved. Hardly any Protoss. They were pretty much the bad guys, and Kerrigan's mindfulness. Yeah.
I mean, in Heart of the Swarm, at least, I would have liked to have seen more Protoss. But, again, this just goes back to we don't know how long of an interim there will be between HOTS and Void. I mean, Zeratul, in the meantime, could have been talking to Artanis, trying to reunite his people, could have been mobilizing their troops to do something. Again, we ended Swarm off with Kerrigan flying to Ire, or Shakuras. Ire. Flying to Ire. And we'll just see what happens from there.
Well, talking about Zeratul now, what's going to happen to Zeratul? The last we hear from him, he's telling Sarah, I'm going to go to my people and I await their judgment. He is doing what is right for the entire universe.
Yes.
And it might not be popular with his people, with the leadership that is there. Zeratul has been profoundly efficient in trying to accomplish this mission to try to make sure this prophecy does not come true. What will happen to him, we don't know. He's already been an outcast for so long as part of the Dark Templar against the leadership of the Kala. I wonder if he's going to come into a lot of difficulties or be attacked by his own people because they might found out that he had helped Sarah become what she is. However, this also leads into that ship, which we'll get into a little bit. But I want to bring up Tassadar real fast too, man. Tassadar was such an integral part of this piece as well because he told Zeratul that Kerrigan has to stay alive. He's the one that gave him that information that she can't die and gave him that vision, and that vision got transferred over to Jim. So Zeratul has been in a dilemma for a while, but if his consciousness has peaks that he knows what he has done is right, he can use that maybe in a powerful way, in a leadership way, to convince the other Protoss to follow him or to follow the Conclave or whatever government that they have to fight against this menace. Your enemy is not the Terran. Your enemy is not Sarah Kerrigan. Your enemy is Amon, and we have to unite together. Go ahead.
I do want to mention here, Tassadar and Zeratul. I would really like to, first off, see Tassadar make some kind of return in Legacy of the Void. Perhaps, like I mentioned last episode, maybe Tassadar Zeratul forming in some kind of like super Archon, like they were in the original StarCraft. It didn't actually get used, but there was a hint of that there, the Tassadar Zeratul Archon. I would like to see that come to pass. And as long as Tassadar is there, I feel like there shouldn't be any reason to argue with this. Artanis is the hierarch of the Protoss. He's now the highest position, again, still the youngest leader of the Protoss, and he has worked with both Zeratul and Tassadar, so he's fought alongside with Zeratul. He was put in place by Tassadar after witnessing Tassadar give himself to kill the original Overmind, by blowing himself up inside the Ganrathor. I feel like because Artanis, again, very young, taken notes from both of these two very great, powerful leaders. Again, Zeratul was kind of the leader of the Dark Templar, and Tassadar was the leader of the regular Protoss. Artanis really has no choice but to just say, okay, and I trust you guys. There's really no reason for me to fight against you. Although, assuming that the other tribe leaders are still around, there might be some conflict. But I feel like that is going to be key. That little trifecta of Protoss leaders, Artanis, Tassadar, and Zeratul, should be key in reuniting the tribes.
Another question that comes up that we can theory craft a bit here is, what race was Duran Narud? Was he a Xel'Naga? Can the Xel'Naga shapeshift? Was he a different race that the Xel'Naga had made? We know from Stukov that he is a servant of Amon. We just don't exactly know what he is. And shapeshifting is crazy, man. To be able to do that is nuts. And I just wonder if there's others like him that have maybe been involved, if there are other shapeshifters out there that
right. What if there are still other shapeshifters out there currently in, like what if Stukov is a shapeshifter? I mean, it would be crazy to see because nobody would see it coming. But when you think about it, that's what Duran was back in Brood War.
He can't be
one.
I'm just he's alive.
Throwing that out there.
He's alive. Then if we go down that rabbit hole, everyone's a shapeshifter. I hope that there's a little bit more revealed again in the Golden Age. We'll talk about this in a bit. The Golden Age of the Xel'Naga going back. It's just another question of what exactly was he, and will that be explained? Is there more of him?
I feel like it's safe to assume that there's got to be more out there. If Legacy of the Void
look
is going to be all
cool
about
he looks. There's got to be more than one guy
fighting, right?
Yeah. Okay. Will Zagara challenge Sarah Kerrigan? The conversations that are brought up between her and Sarah are funny at times, but they also have a sense or a hint of seriousness. The Zagara feels that if she can take over the swarm, she'll make her move. Sarah asks her, when are you going to make your move? And Zagara says, I've still much to learn from you, my queen. I'm not going to make my move. Will she make a move against the Queen of Blades? I don't think she will, man, because pretty much the heart of the swarm is wrapped up with those characters. I can't really see more challenges against Sarah at this point. It is a possibility, however, with the type of character that Zagara is.
Right. I mean, on a similar note, what about Dahaka? Could he perhaps try and take over again? His whole job is to just capture essences. Obviously, he's in it for himself. If he thinks that he can gain something by taking over the swarm, then I'm sure he would. But again, it seems like Heart of the Swarm is all about reuniting and creating this reborn swarm to fight against Amon.